Hey, you guys, welcome and welcome back. I hope y'all are doing well. The weather's finally changing, so we got to talk about some things real quick, okay? First of all, be sure to like and subscribe to continue to catch the vibe. I wanted to talk to you guys today about parenting, right? I've been making a few parenting videos on this channel, and that's something that I always do because I am a parent, right? But, you know, there's just a lot going on in the world right now that I feel a subject is necessary to have a conversation about, right? The subject of parenting, when it comes to understanding balance, right? So when you're a parent, if you're any parent worth a damn, you don't want your child to be brought up in a bad situation. You don't want your child to go through anything negative or like deal with abuse or anything like that. You want your child to have a good experience within their childhood. At least for me, that's what I want. However, you also are tasked with the responsibility of making sure said child grows up into a productive, functioning member of society, right? So a lot of times, it gets to be a little sticky when you're talking about what to do in order to make those things happen simultaneously, right? But what I learned is that as long as you have balance and as long as you are not going from one extreme to the other, you'll be fine, right? With all that being said, when it comes to parenting, I'm sorry, but what's her name? Diddy's mama. She make me sick, child. And, different things that come out every day about this story make little, nuggets of wisdom pop up in my mind. That woman makes me sick because, I'm not going to make this about him, but we need to understand this simple thing. Balance is key when it comes to raising kids. And there's a thin line when raising children. There's a thin line between discipline and abuse. On the same flip side of the token, there's a thin line between advocating for your kids and enabling your kids, okay? When it comes to discipline, children need discipline. I don't care what any of these gentle parenting people say. Children need discipline. You cannot allow for a child to just walk around out here on this earth without any type of consequences or repercussions for their actions. And if you want them to be a functioning member of society, you have to teach them. Ooh, excuse me. I just ate a sandwich. But you have to teach them early what it looks like to have consequences to your actions. For example, when I was growing up, there were severe punishments. I got whoopings, okay? And these whoopings were not no tap, tap, pow, pow, light whoopings. This was me getting my butt towed down by either an extension cord, a hanger, a flip-flop, a slide, somebody's hand, whatever was around, I was getting my ass whooped, okay? The bathtub? Yeah. Yeah, he just came. He got done earlier. Thank you. Child. But they still made sure, even when I was getting disciplined and even when I was getting whoopings, that I understood why. It was never no thing where my people were just whooping me for no reason. I knew exactly why I was getting a whooping. I knew exactly what was going on and what my problem was in the situation. And I feel like it was beneficial because it taught me not to go around, playing silly games and looking to win silly prizes, okay? However, in the older generation, sometimes I do feel like there are circumstances and situations where the discipline has a tendency to possibly go a little bit too far. Now, I'm not judging nobody in the way they choose to discipline their child because, you know, there's balance with that as well when it comes to telling parents how they can discipline their children. Because every child is different, every parent is different, every family is different. But when you take that discipline to the extreme, you can run into trouble when it comes to stifling your child. Because one thing I'm sick of seeing is parents, I don't care if it's the mom or dad or grandma, grandpa, I'm sick of seeing parents discipline their child to the point where they are dimming their child's light and they're stifling their child's growth. Because sometimes as adults, we lose sight of the magic of life, okay? Sometimes as adults, we forget what's really important when it comes to imagination and dreaming and love, because we're so stuck in the rat race of this ignoramus society. And I get tired of people, even if they deviate from the old-fashioned capital punishment of giving their child a whooping. Even if they deviate from that and they're no longer physically disciplining their child, but now maybe they're mentally or emotionally disciplining their child, I want for parents to understand that no matter what your child does, no matter what they get in trouble with, you cannot take away their light. And if you feel that your child is not doing things to your liking to where you can vicariously live through them and you can live out your dreams through this child, or if you feel like your child is not fitting in with other children to where it makes you look away, check yourself. Because there are certain things where I had to check myself as a parent. There are certain times where I had to take a step back, especially as my sons have gotten older. I've had to take a step back and realize that they have individual and unique thoughts, feelings, and experiences. And sometimes you forget that. And I'm not saying that anyone's wrong if they have a lapse with that information. But what I am saying is that when you realize that there's a lapse, and when you realize that you've become forgetful of what it is to grow up, you got to check yourself. And I really get tired of seeing parents out here try to grow their children up too fast, or the adultification of certain children. Let kids be kids. Stop going out here making your kids imitate your life and reality. And if you're saying, oh, well, that's what my child wants to do, you need to check what you're allowing them to see and be around. You need to really take a second look at maybe the things that you are introducing your kid to that makes them think that they want to have that grown type of life or grown type of lifestyle experience. Because I guarantee you a majority of kids, unless they're introduced to a certain way of life, they're not thinking about that stuff. I just had to get that off my chest, child. Because I'm tired of seeing parents take the light out of their child's eyes by the ways that they choose to indoctrinate them into this society. A lot of these kids that are being born or that have been born in the last 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, they were basically conditioned and meant to change our world. And if you're putting them in the same mental thought processes that basically like took you out of your creative space and took you out of your imagination space, then there's no hope for us. The men already don't want to be men. The women are tired and the kids are lost. And it's just so frustrating to see parents, especially on these apps, forcing their kids to think a certain way or act a certain way or be a certain way. And when I say that, that's what all parents do. But there's a certain line that's being crossed that I just can't fuck with. And that is the line of you not doing it for a positive reason. You doing it for a prideful vanity reason as a parent. It's one thing to teach a child how to live and basically like come up in the world. It's one thing to show a child the ways of the world and how things should go. It's one thing to prepare a child for what they may experience in the outside world, but it's a totally another thing. That sounded crazy. It's a totally different circumstance when you are forcing a child to think a certain way or be a certain way that's not authentic to who they truly are to please your own ego. That's the problem that I have, okay? You're supposed to be there as a parent to enrich your child's needs and enrich their own interests. You're not supposed to be there to totally recalibrate them and mold them into the little minion that you want them to be to please you. Now, when I say there's a thin line between discipline and abuse, that's what I mean. Because it's not just physical. It's not just physical abuse. It's also mental, spiritual, and emotional abuse that a lot of these kids are facing when it comes to parents who don't allow them to research or identify their own desires in life. Now, when I say there's a thin line between advocating for your kids and enabling your kids, we talking about the examples like Miss Combs, whatever her name is, child, Janice or Janet or whatever her name is. When you are woefully ignorant of your child's issues, challenges, trials, tribulations, things that they have to face. If you're being woefully ignorant of these things and you're choosing not to get your child some type of support, or you're choosing not to get your child some type of evaluation, or you are choosing to look the other way when you have a kid that is literally wreaking havoc and got all types of problems, okay, throw it off on the next level, but you steadily want to baby them and coddle them, that's what's creating another problem within our society, okay? I'm sick of these parents sticking an iPad in front of their kids to calm them down in public places rather than to teach their child how to go into a public place and act accordingly. Okay? I'm sorry. I was never going to go into no public place with my mama and act a fool. Because I knew I might get the shit slapped out of me. And you know, some people might see that, oh, that's so harsh. That's so bad. And I know, like I said earlier, because that's why I discussed the whole discipline thing first, is that there's a balance to that. But when you have a child, for example, I worked in Walmart one year, and there was this child taking the candy and items off of the checkout lines. Like when you get in line and there's candy there and all that stuff, there was this kid taking items off of that space. And basically what this kid was doing was throwing everything on the floor and kicking all this stuff around like it was little soccer balls. But I and the people on the front end, because I was the manager at the time, would have had to clean that shit up. So I told that little sucker, I said, where's your mama? Okay? Hey, how you doing? Good. I told that little sucker, I said, where's your mama? And he was like looking at me, and then, I don't know, kept kicking stuff around. I said, I'm going to call your mama up here. I gave him a few chances. I said, I'm going to call your mama up here and get your mama to come get you. Do it. It don't matter. I said, and I had 2 kids at this time. And this was like a kid who was older than my kids at the time. I said, okay. So he keep kicking stuff around. I said, stop. And I'm telling you right now to stop. I don't care what your mama gonna do. I'm telling you right now, you need to stop. Or I'm gonna make you and your mama leave the store. He didn't want to stop. He kept going. I walked up to him. I got real close. And I was like, if you don't stop kicking that motherfucking candy around, I'm gonna beat your ass. He didn't think I was gonna say that. He didn't think and I took him real close too. I grabbed him, sure did. And I said, hey, cut it out. Because if you don't fucking cut it out, I'm going to beat your ass like I'm your mama. And he looked scared. And then some of the adults that he was with came around the corner and was like, what's going on? I said, your child was kicking around candy, taking things off the shelf and kicking it around like it was a soccer ball, messing up the front end. And they could see the mess that he made a big mess. He just kept ripping stuff off the counter. And she was like, oh, I think it was like his grandmother or something like that. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Sometimes I just can't handle him, and I'm trying to help his mama and all this other type of stuff. I said, well, I'm going to be frank with you, ma'am. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not trying to make you feel bad about your situation. But I told her straight up, I told him that I would beat his ass if he continued to mess up my front end at the store. Well, I mean, that seems a little harsh because you're not his parent, and that could be considered child abuse because you're not his guardian. You can't put your hands on him. That's assault and da-da-da-da-da. I said, yes, but you just told me that you have an issue with disciplining him, and he's now wreaking havoc on my front end. So either he's going to get y'all kicked out of the store permanently, or somebody's going to have to discipline him. And she was like, well, I understand. I just, I don't like violence, and I don't like whoopings and things like that. And I said, well, I understand that. But then you're going to have to find another way. You're going to have to find a way that sticks, because whatever you're doing now is not working. And if he's okay with doing this now and he feels like there's no consequences to doing this now, what about when he gets older and he decides that it's a woman that he wants to kick around like that, or he decides that it's another man that he wants to kick around like that, one of his so-called friends that he feels entitled to be able to beat up like that? And she was like, yeah, you're right. And I said, well, then y'all need to purchase your items and leave. Because I was the front end manager and nobody else was there. It was like early in the morning. I'm just let this child tear up my store, and then all the employees that's up there going to be mad at me because they don't want to clean up his mess. So I told him, I said, ma'am, I think the first thing you should do is tell him to clean up behind himself. And she did. So it was definitely a situation where she was enabling him in that behavior, but it was also coming from a place of her like having not a bunch of resources, not a lot of information and energy and effort that she could put into the situation. So when I say all of these things, I understand both sides. I understand that you want to protect your children. You don't want your children to be in situations where they may be harmed or, negatively affected by the outcome of situations. But there's also a very thin line between a disorderly child and a criminalistic adult. And I think we need to think about that a little bit more and start to really try to evaluate how we move forward when it comes to explaining these types of things to our children and having open communication with each other about what's appropriate and what we need to do. because it's a lot of things that's getting out of hand, y'all. And I just had to speak on it. I'm just tired of seeing, kids be able to run amok and harm other kids or other people, grow up to be harmful adults. And I'm tired of seeing adults destroy their children and dim the light of their children out of envy or jealousy or this unrealistic desire to fit in. I think we need to do better. So that's just what I had to say. I really appreciate you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to continue to catch the vibe. We will definitely have more conversations. Get in the comments. Let me know what you think about this conversation and what you think about disciplining. What do you feel like is appropriate? And what have you experienced in your life that maybe helped you or helped someone that you saw around you? I think it's good to have these types of conversations. So I'll see y'all next time. Love you guys. Thank you for all the support. Bye.